so tough that many pilots didn't make it. Security guard Herbert Monin witnessed a plane going down.
By the time we managed to get to it, the plane had been burning for a while. I could see a pilot up front hanging at the door. I pulled him down, dragged him around in the dirt to put out the flames, and threw him into a pool of water. There were 2 more in there, and just as we pulled them out, the plane exploded.
Altogether, 70 Allied crewmen would die. And yet, the airlift had to go on. Berlin needed up to 12,000 tons of food and fuel a day to survive the Soviet blockade. Planes landed at Tempelhof every 3 minutes, guided by a new radar system.
You're going dangerously low. 80 feet low, I say again. You're going dangerously low. Adjust rate of descent. Bring it up, please.
And he'd say, hey, you're going low on the glide path. Pull up a little bit. So we'd pull up a little bit.
Glide path in 10 seconds.
So you're above the glide path, you'd let it down. Then he'd say, you're right on the glide path.
On course and on the glide path. Looking very nice at this time.
So he'd talk us right down over the runway.
Take over. Complete your full stop landing. You're clear to Tempelhof Tower. Good day.
Even with all the difficulties, daily cargoes were growing. In July, the planes were bringing in over 2,000 tons a day. By September, the loads had more than doubled. The flights went on around the clock. The pilots were on a punishing schedule.
We came into Berlin, we'd land, and believe me, I used to jump out of the airplane and walk into our operations office and sleep on a desk for sometimes 5 minutes. So we were exhausted.
The pressure was on, too, for the men unloading the planes. Men like Manfred Kleinschmidt.
We had to unload a 10-ton cargo plane in 12 to 15 minutes. We unloaded a lot of food, flour, sugar. The sugar bags weighed over 200 pounds. They were very heavy. But we knew we were helping to keep the city free.
Berliners were beginning to believe that the airlift might just get them through. On September 9th, more than 250,000 gathered in front of the Reichstag, the old German parliament, to show the Soviets that they would not yield. Among the crowd was a student named Hilda Riebe.
Ernst Reuter, the then Lord Mayor of Berlin, called the Berliners to meet, and we all went. We were happy to be in the free world. Liberty was worth more than enough food.
Despite the growing optimism, Berliners and pilots alike were facing their stiffest challenge yet: winter. The people of the city were not getting enough to eat. Many lived in bombed-out buildings. They cut the trees in the parks for fuel, but there was not enough.
In the winter it was terrible because we froze. We froze, and there were very many people who froze to death.
That September was the coldest in 30 years. Now came fog and ice, threatening the airlift. Although his flight schedule was grueling, Gail Halvorsen stole the time to take his camera to film Berlin.
I was supposed to go to bed when I got back to West Germany at Rhine-Main. Middle of the day, get 6 hours sleep and do it again. But I had my movie camera, and my buddy was ready to leave for Berlin with a load of dried potatoes. I said, hey, I'd just go back to Berlin instead of going to bed, and I can get off the base and take pictures.
While out shooting, he met a group of children.
These kids hadn't had gum and candy for months, but not one would lower themselves to become a beggar. To beg for something so extravagant as chocolate or gum. Started to go away, and I thought, well, you'll never see them again. Give them what you got. And that's the biggest decision I ever made in my life. I found myself saying to the kid, hey, look, if you come back tomorrow and share it, I'll drop enough candy and even maybe some chocolate for all of you to have some, if you'll share it. Oh, they said, jawohl, jawohl.
Back at base, Halvorsen hurried to tie his Air Force ration of candy and gum onto tiny parachutes.
And we got the word one day that one of the planes started throwing out candy in little parachutes. In no time at all, more planes were doing it, and it seemed like it was a constant thing. And man, the kids gathered by the hundreds.
This new airlift an airlift of candy, was named Operation Little Vittles. Colonel Halverson received letters by the sackful from the kids. They didn't know the pilot's name, so they addressed their words to the chocolate uncle. One child's letter stood out.
I was near despair because I never caught a parachute, and chocolate was the best thing I could imagine. So I sat myself down and started to write a letter. I wrote, "Dear Chocolate Uncle, every day you fly over our house. Please drop a parachute here. You'll find our house easily enough. There are white chickens in the garden."
Well, couldn't find them. Had my buddies drop it. I said, "Saturate bomb the approach for Mercedes." We didn't hit her either.
Unable to parachute the candy to Mercedes, Halverson ended up mailing her a package from Tempelhof Airfield. The casual exchange of letters would grow into a friendship lasting half a century.
I saved the letter. It was a symbol of this special relationship between a pilot and a little girl.
News of Halverson's candy drop spread to the U.S.
Originated by Lieutenant Gail Halverson, a 27-year-old bachelor from Garland, Utah, Operation Little Vittles is now flown by scores of U.S. pilots. They're just about the most popular men in Germany today. An act of kindness pays unforeseen dividends in the battle for Berlin.
The pilots were heroes to the kids. Operation Little Vittles became the perfect symbol of the American effort to reach out and help the Berliners. All that winter, the airlift struggled on, managing hundreds of flights a day. Finally, the hard work, the sacrifice, was paying off. By January, the airlift was bringing in enough to meet the needs of the city. Berliners had made it through the winter. By spring, the airlift was working so smoothly that it could bring in more supplies than